The humid air of Ouagadougou clung to President Ibrahim Traore's skin as he sat in the dimly lit war room of the presidential palace. It was past midnight, and the city outside was restless, its pulse quickening with rumors of unrest. Traore, a young leader hardened by years of military service, stared at the map of Burkina Faso spread across the table. Red pins marked insurgent strongholds in the north, blue ones denoted loyalist garrisons. His advisors, a mix of grizzled generals and nervous civilians, awaited his next move. The country teetered on the edge of collapse, and Traore's enemies, both foreign and domestic, smelled blood. 2 weeks ago, a cryptic intelligence report had landed on his desk, a coalition of exiled politicians, rogue military officers, and foreign mercenaries was plotting his assassination. The report lacked specifics, names, dates, locations, but Traore's instincts, honed by years of surviving ambushes in the Sahel, told him the threat was real. He'd already survived 2 coups since taking power in 2022, each more ruthless than the last. This time, the stakes were higher. His vision for a self-reliant Burkina Faso, free from foreign influence and jihadist chaos, had made him a target. The war room door creaked open, and Captain Amina Zongo, his most trusted aide, stepped in. Her face was taut, her eyes sharp with urgency. "Sir, we've intercepted chatter. They're moving tonight. A strike team, likely mercenaries, is already in the city." Traore's jaw tightened. He leaned forward, his fingers tracing the map's edges. "Numbers, location?" he asked, voice low but steady. Amina hesitated. "At least 12, heavily armed. They're staging near the old market district. We don't know their exact target, but it's you or the palace." Traore stood, his tall frame casting a shadow over the map. He wore no uniform tonight, just a simple black tunic, but his presence commanded the room. "Evacuate the non-essentials, double the perimeter guard, and get me Colonel Diallo." The advisors scrambled, but Amina lingered. "Sir, we should move you to the safe house in Bobo Dioulasso." Traore's eyes flashed. "Run? No. If they want me, they'll have to come through me." Amina's lips parted to protest, but she knew better. Traore's stubbornness was legendary. Minutes later, Colonel Diallo, a wiry man with scars crisscrossing his face, burst in. "We've got eyes on a convoy, 3 SUVs, moving fast from the east. They're not ours." Traore nodded, his mind racing. The market district was a maze of narrow alleys, perfect for an ambush. If the mercenaries reached the palace, they'd have to breach 3 layers of security. But Traore wasn't one to wait for the enemy to strike first. "Assemble a strike team," he ordered, 10 of our best. We hit them before they hit us." Diallo grinned, a rare show of emotion. "Yes, sir." As Diallo left to rally the men, Traore turned to Amina. "You're with me. We're going to the market." Her eyes widened. "Sir, that's reckless." He cut her off. "Reckless is letting them dictate the fight. Move." The night air was thick as Traore and his team slipped out of the palace in unmarked vehicles. The city was a powder keg. Jihadist attacks had left the population on edge, and whispers of betrayal lingered in every shadow. Traore's convoy moved silently, headlights off, weaving through Ouagadougou's backstreets. He checked his sidearm, a well-worn Makarov pistol, and glanced at Amina. Her face was a mask of focus, her rifle ready. The radio crackled, target sighted. 3 vehicles, parked near the mosque. "They're unloading." Traore's pulse quickened, but his voice remained calm. "Engage on my mark." The convoy stopped a block away, and the team dismounted, moving like ghosts through the alleys. The market was eerily quiet, its stalls shuttered, the air heavy with the scent of spices and dust. Traore spotted the mercenaries, black-clad figures, armed with rifles and night vision goggles. They were professionals, likely ex-French Foreign Legion, hired by someone with deep pockets. He signaled his team to fan out. The plan was simple: hit hard, hit fast, and disappear. Traore crouched behind a stall, his eyes locked on the enemy leader, a tall man barking orders in a foreign tongue. The man's radio crackled, and Traore caught a snippet. "Palace team, stand by." So, there was another unit. This wasn't just an assassination, it was a coordinated attack. Traore raised his hand, fingers counting down. 3, 2, 1. The night exploded into chaos, gunfire, shouts, the screech of metal. His team moved with precision, cutting down half the mercenaries before they could react. Traore fired twice, dropping the enemy leader with surgical accuracy. But the survivors rallied, returning fire with disciplined bursts. A bullet grazed Amina's arm, and she cursed, blood seeping through her sleeve. "Keep moving," Traore barked, pulling her behind cover. The fight was brutal, but Traore's team had the advantage of surprise. Within minutes, the mercenaries were down, their convoy a smoking ruin. Traore scanned the scene, his chest heaving. "Amina, status?" She grimaced, clutching her arm. "I'll live." He nodded, then turned to Diallo. "We need to move. There's another team out there." As they retreated to the vehicles, Traore's mind churned. Who was behind this? And how close were they to the palace? Back at the palace, the air was thick with tension. Traore's team had neutralized the first strike team, but the radio chatter about a second unit gnawed at him. He stood in the war room, his tunic stained with sweat and dust from the market fight. Amina, her arm bandaged, stood by his side, her eyes scanning the room for any sign of disloyalty. The advisors were quieter now, their faces pale. Traore knew trust was a luxury he could no longer afford. Colonel Diallo burst in, his radio crackling with updates. "We've got reports of movement near the airport. A private jet landed an hour ago, unregistered. Could be their extraction plan." Traore's eyes narrowed. The airport was 10 miles away. A vulnerable spot if the enemy had air support. "Lock it down," he ordered. "No one leaves the ground without my say-so." Diallo nodded and relayed the command. Traore turned to the map, his mind piecing together the puzzle. The mercenaries in the market were a distraction. He realized, a feint to draw his forces away from the palace. The real attack was coming, and it was likely an inside job. Someone in this room, or close to it, was feeding information to the enemy. He glanced at his advisors, General Kabore, a veteran with a penchant for French wine, Minister Sanu, whose nervous tics betrayed his fear, and Madame Diarra, the intelligence chief, whose calm demeanor seemed almost too perfect. "Amina," Traore said quietly, "run a background check on everyone in this room." Discreetly, she nodded, slipping out to make the calls. Traore's paranoia wasn't baseless. His rise to power had been a lightning rod for resentment. Old guard politicians, sidelined by his reforms, and military officers loyal to the ousted regime were desperate to see him fall. But who had the resources to hire mercenaries? The radio crackled again. "Sir, we've got a breach at the east gate." Diallo's voice was urgent. Traore grabbed his pistol and sprinted toward the security hub, his team close behind. The palace's surveillance room was a chaos of blinking monitors and shouting guards. On the main screen, grainy footage showed 6 figures in tactical gear scaling the east wall, cutting through barbed wire with practiced ease. "They're inside the perimeter," a guard reported, his voice trembling. Traore's mind raced. The east gate was the weakest point, a flaw he'd flagged months ago but hadn't had the funds to fix. "Seal the inner compound," he barked. Floodlights on, snipers to the roofs. The guards scrambled, but Traore knew they were stretched thin. The palace was a fortress, but not impregnable. He turned to Diallo. "Take half the team and hold the courtyard. I'll handle the breach." Diallo hesitated. "Sir, you can't." Traore cut him off. "That's an order." He grabbed a rifle from the armory rack and moved toward the east wing, Amina at his heels. The corridors were dark, the power flickering, likely sabotage. Traore's boots echoed on the marble floor as he navigated the maze of hallways. He could hear distant gunfire now, sharp and sporadic, mixed with the shouts of his men. They reached the east courtyard, where the intruders had already engaged the guards. The enemy moved like a unit, their silenced weapons spitting death. Traore took cover behind a stone pillar, his rifle raised. He fired, dropping one of the intruders, but the others scattered, using the shadows to their advantage. Amina flanked left, her wounded arm slowing her but not stopping her. "Two on the balcony," she shouted, firing a burst that forced the enemy to duck. The fight was fast and brutal. Traore's training kicked in. He moved with lethal precision, his shots finding their marks. But the intruders were relentless, and one lobbed a flashbang that exploded with blinding light. Traore's ears rang, but he stayed focused, taking down another enemy with a headshot. The remaining intruders retreated toward the outer wall, but not before one dropped a small device, a detonator. "Bomb!" Amina yelled, tackling Traore to the ground as an explosion rocked the courtyard, shattering windows and sending debris flying. The blast was small, meant to cover their escape, but it left Traore's ears buzzing and his vision blurred. He staggered to his feet, coughing through the smoke. "After them," he ordered. But the intruders had vanished into the night. Back in the security hub, Traore assessed the damage. 2 guards were dead, 3 wounded. The intruders had left behind a trail of blood and a single clue, a burner phone. Its screen cracked but still functional. Traore handed it to Amina. "Get this to tech. I want every call, every text." She nodded, her face grim. As the team regrouped, Traore's mind turned to the bigger picture. The airport, the palace breach, the mercenaries, all pieces of a larger plan. Someone was orchestrating this, and they were close. He called Diallo. "The jet at the airport, ground it. I don't care how, and get me a list of every foreign national who's entered the country in the last 48 hours. As Diallo relayed the orders, Traore's eyes fell on Madame Diarra, who had just entered the hub. Her calm demeanor was unshaken, but her hands were clasped too tightly. Traore's gut twisted. Was she the leak, or was he seeing enemies where there were none? Dawn broke over Ouagadougou, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. But Traore felt no warmth. The palace was on lockdown, its walls scarred from the night's attack. The burner phone recovered from the courtyard had yielded a single lead, a text mentioning a safe exit at the airport. Traore knew the enemy's plan hinged on mobility, strike, escape, repeat. If he could cut off their escape route, he might unravel the conspiracy. He gathered his team in the war room, now a makeshift command center. The air was thick with the smell of coffee and gun oil. Amina, her arm in a sling, presented the latest intel. "The jet at the airport is registered to a shell company in Dubai. No passenger manifest, but we've got footage of 3 men boarding, 2 Europeans, 1 West African. They're still on the tarmac." Traore nodded, his mind calculating. Mercenaries don't travel light. They've got support, local or foreign. Colonel Diallo leaned forward. "We've sealed the airport perimeter, but our forces are spread thin. If we move on the jet, we risk exposing the palace again." Traore's eyes flicked to the map. The airport was a choke point, but also a trap. If he committed too many men, the palace could be hit again. But if he did nothing, the enemy could slip away. "We go in small," Traore decided. "Me, Amina, you, and 6 others. We seize the jet, interrogate the crew." Diallo frowned. "Sir, you're the president. You can't keep running into the line of fire." Traore's gaze was steel. "I'm a soldier first. Lead or follow, but get out of my way." Diallo relented, and the team prepped for the mission. The drive to the airport was tense, the city waking to a morning laced with fear. Checkpoints were everywhere, manned by nervous soldiers. Traore's convoy, 2 battered SUVs, blended into the chaos. He wore a tactical vest now, his Makarov holstered but ready. Amina sat beside him, her face pale but resolute. "You should have stayed back," he said quietly. She snorted, "and let you have all the fun." They reached the airport service entrance, a rusted gate guarded by 2 loyalists. The jet sat on a private tarmac, its sleek frame gleaming under the rising sun. Traore's team moved on foot, sticking to the shadows of hangars and cargo crates. The tarmac was quiet, too quiet. Traore's instincts screamed ambush. He signaled a halt, scanning the area. Then he saw it, a glint of metal on a nearby rooftop. "Sniper," he hissed, diving behind a crate as a bullet cracked the pavement where he'd stood. The team scattered, returning fire. The sniper, perched on a maintenance shed, was joined by 3 others, their rifles spitting suppressed rounds. Traore's team was pinned, caught in a kill zone. "Flank them," he ordered, motioning to Amina and 2 others to circle right. He and Diallo laid down covering fire, their bullets chipping concrete and metal. The fight was a deadly dance. Amina's group took out 1 sniper, but the others adjusted, their shots too precise. These weren't local thugs, they were elite, likely trained in Western Special Forces. Traore spotted a fuel truck nearby, its tank a potential game changer. He sprinted toward it, bullets kicking up dirt around him. Sliding behind the truck, he fired at the hoses, sending fuel spraying across the tarmac. A well-aimed shot ignited it, and a fireball erupted, forcing the snipers to retreat. With the enemy distracted, Traore's team pushed forward, reaching the jet. The crew, 2 pilots and a heavily armed guard, surrendered after a brief firefight. Traore climbed aboard, his rifle trained on the trembling pilot. "Who hired you?" he demanded. The man, a wiry European with a scarred lip, stammered, I don't know names. Just money. Wired from Geneva. Traore pressed the barrel to the man's forehead. Try harder. The pilot's eyes darted to a laptop in the cockpit. Check that. It's all there. Amina retrieved the laptop. Its screen showing encrypted emails. We'll need tech to crack this, she said. Traore nodded, but his attention shifted to the tarmac. Sirens wailed in the distance. Reinforcements. Or another attack. He ordered the team to secure the jet and retreat. As they moved, a black SUV roared onto the tarmac. Its windows tinted. It didn't stop, speeding toward the terminal. Traore's gut told him it was the mastermind, or someone close. After it, he shouted, leaping into their SUV with Diallo at the wheel. The chase was reckless, weaving through airport service roads and onto the city's main arteries. The black SUV was fast, its driver skilled, but Diallo was relentless, closing the gap. Traore leaned out the window, firing at the tires. One shot connected, sending the SUV swerving into a ditch. The team surrounded it, weapons drawn, but the vehicle was empty, except for a single item, a diplomatic passport. French, with a name Traore recognized. Pierre Laurent, a low-level attaché with ties to the old regime. Back at the palace, the laptop yielded a partial decryption, a message mentioning the council and a meeting in Bamako. Traore's blood ran cold. The council was a rumored cabal of African elites and foreign investors. Opposed to his reforms, was Laurent their puppet, or just a pawn? As he pondered, Amina burst in. Sir, we've got a problem. General Kabore's gone missing. The news of General Kabore's disappearance hit Traore like a gut punch. Kabore, a loyalist who'd fought alongside him during the 2022 coup, was a cornerstone of his inner circle. If he was the traitor, the conspiracy ran deeper than Traore had feared. The war room was a hive of activity, with texts pouring over the jet's laptop and guards sweeping the palace for bugs. Traore stood by the map, his eyes tracing the road to Bamako. The council, Laurent, Kabore, it was all connected. But the pieces weren't aligning yet. Amina approached, her face grim. Kabore was last seen leaving the palace at 4 a.m. His phone's offline. But we tracked his car to a warehouse district in the city's west end. Traore's jaw clenched. He's either running or setting a trap. Either way, we find him. He turned to Diallo. Prep a team. We move in an hour. Diallo nodded, but his eyes betrayed doubt. Losing Kabore wasn't just a tactical blow, it was personal. The warehouse district was a sprawl of rusted metal and abandoned lots. A perfect hideout for deserters or assassins. Traore's team arrived under the midday sun, the heat shimmering off the asphalt. They split into 3 units. Traore leading the first. His rifle was slung low, his senses sharp. The warehouses were quiet, but the air felt heavy, like a storm about to break. Amina, her arm still bandaged, scanned the rooftops. This feels wrong, she muttered. Traore agreed but pressed forward. They reached the target warehouse, a hulking structure with broken windows. Inside, the air was stale, filled with the stench of oil and decay. Traore's team moved methodically, clearing each room. In the back, they found Kabore's car, empty, but with bloodstains on the driver's seat. Traore's heart sank. Was Kabore dead, or had he staged this? Before he could process, a shot rang out, grazing Diallo's shoulder. Ambush! Amina yelled, diving behind a crate. The attackers emerged from the shadows, 6 men, armed with submachine guns, their faces masked. Traore's team returned fire, the warehouse erupting into a cacophony of gunfire and ricochet. Traore spotted a staircase leading to a catwalk and sprinted for it. Drawing the enemy's attention, he climbed, firing down at the attackers. Dropping 2, Amina and Diallo flanked from below, their coordination seamless despite the chaos. The fight ended as quickly as it began. 5 attackers were dead, 1 captured. Traore knelt beside the survivor, yanking off his mask. The man was young, Burkinabe, his eyes wide with fear. Who sent you? Traore demanded. The man spat. You're a dead man, Traore. The council will bury you. Traore pressed his boot to the man's chest. Where's Kabore? The man smirked, then bit down hard. Foam bubbled at his lips, a cyanide capsule. He was dead in seconds. Traore cursed, standing as Amina approached. Sir, we found this in the car. She held up a USB drive, its casing scratched but intact. Back at the palace, The tech team cracked it open. The drive contained a single file, a video of Traore, bound and gagged, in a dimly lit room. A masked figure stood behind him, speaking in accented English. "Traore, step down, or your general dies. You have 24 hours. The video cut to a map with coordinates, in Bamako. Traore's blood boiled. The council wasn't just plotting his death, they were holding his ally hostage to force his hand. He called a meeting with his remaining advisors. Madame Diarra, still eerily calm, suggested diplomacy. "We could negotiate. Buy time." Traore shook his head. "They don't want talks. They want surrender." He turned to Diallo, whose shoulder was bandaged but functional. "We're going to Bamako, small team, no leaks." The plan was risky: infiltrate Bamako, rescue Traore, and disrupt the council's meeting. Traore knew Mali's capital was a viper's nest of spies and mercenaries. But he had no choice. The jet from the airport was their ticket, repaired and guarded by loyalists. As they prepared, Amina pulled Traore aside. "Sir, what if this is a trap to lure you out?" Traore's eyes hardened. "Then we spring it and break their jaws." The flight to Bamako was tense, the jet's engines humming as Traore studied the coordinates. The location was a compound on the city's outskirts, likely a safe house. He briefed the team: infiltrate, extract Traore, and destroy any evidence of the council's plans. As the jet descended, Traore's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number: "You're walking into a grave." He deleted it, his resolve unshaken. The council thought they could outmaneuver him, but Traore was no prey. He was the hunter now. Bamako's skyline loomed under a haze of dust as Traore's jet touched down at a private airstrip. The city was a labyrinth of alliances and betrayals, its streets alive with the chaos of a region in turmoil. Traore's team, 8 soldiers, including Amina and Diallo, disembarked, their civilian clothes masking their intent. The coordinates led to a compound in the Ouagadougou district, a maze of villas and slums where loyalties shifted like sand. Traore's plan was surgical: infiltrate the compound, rescue General Traore, and extract any intel on the council. The team moved in 2 unmarked vans, weaving through Bamako's crowded streets. Traore sat in the lead vehicle, his Makarov holstered but within reach. Amina, beside him, checked her rifle's magazine. "This feels like diving into a snake pit," she said. Traore's lips twitched. "Good, snakes bleed too." They parked a block from the compound, a walled estate with armed guards at the gate. Traore's team split up, half circling to the rear. Drones had confirmed Traore's presence. Heat signatures showed a guarded building in the compound's center. But Traore's instincts screamed caution. The message from the unknown number lingered in his mind. Was this a trap, or a test? Using the cover of dusk, Traore's team scaled the compound's rear wall, cutting through barbed wire with bolt cutters. Inside, the estate was quiet, its gardens overgrown. Traore led the way, his team moving in a tight formation. They reached the central building, a 2-story structure with barred windows. A guard patrolled the entrance, oblivious to the shadows closing in. Traore signaled, and Diallo took the guard down with a silenced shot. Inside, the building was a maze of corridors, its walls lined with faded propaganda posters. Traore's team cleared each room, finding nothing but dust and cobwebs. Finally, they reached a locked steel door. Amina picked the lock, her hands steady despite her injury. Beyond the door was a basement, lit by a single bulb. Traore sat tied to a chair, his face bruised but defiant. 2 guards stood over him, unaware of the intruders. Traore moved like lightning, dropping both guards with precise shots. He cut Traore's bonds, helping him stand. "You look like hell," Traore said. Traore managed a weak grin. "You should see the other guy." But the reunion was cut short by an alarm blaring through the compound. The team had been spotted. Gunfire erupted outside as Traore's team fought their way back to the vans. The compound's guards were well trained, their numbers swelling as reinforcements arrived. Traore's team was outnumbered, but their discipline held. Amina lobbed a smoke grenade, creating cover as they retreated. Traore carried Traore, whose injuries slowed him down. Bullets whizzed past, one clipping Traore's vest. He gritted his teeth and kept moving. They reached the vans, but the lead vehicle was disabled, its tires shredded. Traore's team piled into the second van, Diallo at the wheel. The chase through Bamako was a nightmare: narrow streets, civilian crowds, and pursuing vehicles closing in. Traore leaned out, firing at their pursuers, disabling one car, but the enemy was relentless. Their SUVs armored and fast. A rocket-propelled grenade streaked past, exploding ahead and forcing Diallo to swerve. The van skidded, nearly flipping, but Diallo kept control. Traore's mind raced. They needed an exit, and fast. He spotted a bridge ahead. Its structure old but sturdy. Head for the bridge, he shouted. Diallo floored it, the van roaring across the Niger River as bullets peppered its frame. On the other side, Traore's team abandoned the van, disappearing into Bamako's slums. Kabore, limping but alive, revealed what he'd overheard. The council was meeting tomorrow at a hotel in the city center, planning to install a puppet leader in Burkina Faso. Traore's blood boiled. The council wasn't just after him, they wanted his country. Back at a safe house, Traore patched up his team and planned their next move. The hotel was a fortress, guarded by private security and local police on the council's payroll. A frontal assault was suicide. But Traore had an idea. We don't attack, he said. We infiltrate. Using Kabore's intel, they'd pose as diplomats, slipping into the meeting to expose the council. It was a gamble, but Traore thrived on high stakes. As the team rested, Amina pulled Traore aside. Sir, Kabore mentioned a name during his captivity, Pierre Laurent. He's here, in Bamako. Traore's eyes narrowed. The French attaché was the key. If they could capture him, the council's plans might crumble. Traore checked his watch. Dawn was hours away, and the council was closing in. But so was he. The Hotel de l'Amitié in Bamako was a gleaming tower of glass and steel, a symbol of the city's elite. Inside, the council was gathering, power brokers from across Africa and beyond, united by greed and ambition. Traore's team, disguised as a diplomatic delegation, slipped through the hotel's security with forged credentials. Traore wore a tailored suit, his Makarov concealed beneath it. Amina and Kabore flanked him, their faces calm but their eyes alert. Diallo and the others waited outside, ready to extract or fight. The meeting was on the top floor, a penthouse suite guarded by private contractors. Traore's team rode the elevator, the silence heavy. Kabore, still battered, whispered, Laurent's the key. He's the council's liaison to the mercenaries. Traore nodded. Capturing Laurent alive was their best shot at dismantling the conspiracy. They reached the penthouse, blending into a crowd of diplomats and businessmen. The room was opulent, its windows offering a panoramic view of Bamako. Traore spotted Laurent, a wiry man with a smug grin, chatting with a group of suited men. The council's leaders were there too, a Malian tycoon, a Nigerian oil baron, and a French banker. Traore's blood ran hot. These were the men pulling the strings, profiting from his country's chaos. Amina slipped away, planting a listening device under a table. Traore approached Laurent, posing as a Congolese envoy. Monsieur Laurent, a word, he said, his French flawless. Laurent's eyes narrowed, but he followed Traore to a quiet corner. Before he could speak, Traore pressed the Makarov to his ribs. One sound, and you're done. Laurent froze, his arrogance replaced by fear. Traore marched him to a service stairwell, where Amina and Kabore waited. Talk, Traore growled. Who's funding the council? Laurent stammered. I'm just a messenger. The banker, Dubois, he's the one with the money. Traore's grip tightened. And the assassination? The coups? Laurent's eyes darted. Dubois hired the mercenaries. The plan was to replace you with Sanu. Traore's heart sank. Minister Sanu, his own advisor, was the traitor. Before he could press further, the stairwell door burst open, and guards poured in, alerted by a silent alarm. Traore shoved Laurent to the ground and fired, dropping 2 guards. Amina and Kabore opened fire, but the enemy was relentless, their numbers overwhelming. The team fought their way to the penthouse, where the council was in chaos. Dubois, the banker, was fleeing toward a private elevator. Traore sprinted after him, dodging bullets. He tackled Dubois just as the elevator doors opened, pinning him to the floor. Call off your dogs, Traore roared. Dubois, pale and trembling, complied, radioing his guards to stand down. With the room secured, Traore's team rounded up the council members. Amina's listening device had recorded their plans, a puppet government in Ouagadougou, backed by foreign funds and mercenary muscle. Traore faced Dubois, his voice cold. You thought you could buy my country? Dubois sneered. You're a boy playing at king. Traore's fist connected with Dubois' jaw. Silencing him, the team exfiltrated with Laurent and Dubois in custody, leaving the council's plans in tatters. Back in Ouagadougou, Traore confronted Sanu, who confessed under pressure. The minister had been promised wealth and power by the council. Traore stripped him of his post, his fate to be decided by a military tribunal. In the weeks that followed, Traore used the council's intel to dismantle their network, arresting collaborators and seizing assets. Burkina Faso remained volatile, but Traore's resolve was unshaken. He addressed the nation, his voice broadcast across radio and television: "We are not for sale. Our future is ours to forge." The people cheered, but Traore knew the fight was far from over. New enemies would rise, but he was ready. Back in the war room, Amina approached, her arm healed. "You took a hell of a risk, sir." Traore smiled faintly. "Risk is all we've got. It's what keeps us alive." As he looked at the map, the red pins seemed fewer, the blue ones stronger. The council was broken, but Burkina Faso's survival depended on his next moves. Traore rolled up his sleeves. The war for his country's soul was just beginning.